Tem um momento na carreira que precisamos dar um passo além. É hora de fazer uma pós-graduação. Só que muitas vezes o custo pesa no bolso, inviabilizando tudo. Com a pós-graduação do Senac, você não tem esse problema. Cursos com até 50% de desconto e muito mais tempo para pagar. TCC opcional, modelo flexível com aulas presenciais e online e alguns cursos com apenas 12 meses de duração. Não tem mais desculpa, hein? Saiba mais em sp.senac.br/pós-graduação.
All right. Welcome back to the Nation. Our next guest is a Las Vegas author, praised for his unique style and powerful character development skills. His books cross multiple genres and appeals to diverse audiences. He was born in England, a far cry from the Nevada desert he now calls home. At the age of 7, his family relocated to the southern part of Africa, where he was raised in various countries and attended boarding school. This opportunity to experience other cultures as a child inspired a love of travel in him and eventually led to his love of the written word. So without further ado, let's get author Stephen Murray on here. All right, so welcome to the show, Stephen Murray, author and Las Vegas resident. How are you today?
Thank you, just fine, Rich, and thank you for having me as a guest on your show. I hope your listeners will enjoy being the show as much as I will enjoy being on it, I'm sure. And I thank you for your service as a veteran.
No problem. Thank you. And thank you for your hookup between me and Homes for Vets. And hopefully that show comes on not long after yours.
Let's hope so. It's a good organization.
Awesome.
Fully win on it.
I love when they have organizations like that help veterans who really need it, such as getting them homes and such like that. So that'll be a really good interview with General Landermeyer when he comes on.
Yes, I hope so. I hope to hear from them soon.
Thank you. So if you want to, just tell me a little bit about your journey, your journey got you to Las Vegas and to being an author.
Well, yes, and it has been quite a journey, Rich. I was originally born in England, but as a child, my family moved to Southern Africa, what was then Southern Rhodesia. I mean, we're talking about back in the 1950s now. And I spent most of my formative years growing up in Africa, in Southern Rhodesia, South Africa. I went to boarding school in South Africa. We also lived in Basutoland, it's now Lesotho, and a couple of other countries, Malawi, that used to be Nyasaland. When I finished school, I went back to live in England for 7 years and traveled throughout Europe. And as much as I loved London, I couldn't stand that cold rain weather that just goes on for months and months on end. And of course, the high cost of living, the taxes and everything were a killer. But I spent 7 years there and I got to travel around Europe. And then I got the chance offer of a job in Los Angeles, California. And the idea of the palm trees and the sunshine and the American dream just naturally appealed to me, and I just cast caution to the wind, packed my 2 suitcases and pitched up in LA with next to no money in my pocket, but I had a job, and that was now 45 years ago, 46 years ago, somewhere around about there, and had 27 very happy years in LA, and I started my own business there, computer software. And then I have one part in my business, but the traffic got so bad and the congestion and everything. So we decided to move the business to Las Vegas, and we moved here 18 years ago. And I never ever dreamed or thought that I would land living in Las Vegas. Certainly not when I was growing up in Africa. And the part about being an author, that came very late in life, Rich. I've had the good fortune to travel extensively throughout the globe on all 5 continents. And I really decided to sit down and write about those experiences. That's what kicked me off into the writing. And when I finished that, I went to get it published and I was told, oh, no, nobody's going to be interested in reading things like that. You've got to write for women. And I thought, gee, that's creepy, because I know nothing about writing women's fiction. Daniel Steele, I've none of that stuff. Barbara Cartland, I know who they are, but that's the extent of it. But I thought I'd have a staff because I discovered a joy of writing. And the first book that I just did to see if I could do it was about a fictional Las Vegas wedding chapel and all the couples that come here to get married. I mean, we are the marriage capital of the world after all. And I never intended to publish it, and then went to Murder Mystery and took that to get published, and they said, no, stick with that wedding chapel book. So it launched, and that's what started it off. That's how it came to pass. It's
Wow.
very interesting journey, but life throws you lots of curves, as I'm sure you've learnt along the way with your life in the service as well. You land up being in places and down paths you never dreamed imaginable.
Oh, definitely. The curves that you wind up on in life are not usually what you plan, and those are usually the best ones because it's always something new. It's not something you plan for, and you're able to have a new experience every time. And I think with your journey from England to the Southern African continent, you were able to see so much more things that many other people have never seen in their lives. And then to Los Angeles for 27 years, seeing that traffic there and the hustle and bustle of LA, and then to Las Vegas, where, like you said, the wedding capital of the world and Sin City, basically. And hopefully you're outside of the niche a little bit, but you're still right there.
How's that for dichotomy? Sin City and the marriage capital of the world.
Exactly. I just had a friend last week get married there for his latest marriage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, let's hope this one lasts.
We're all praying for him.
Yeah.
So, of all your books, were they all self-published, or was it just the first one? Or
no, I self-published them. The company that helped me get the first one published, that said I had to go with the wedding chapel book. The guy that runs it, he said that, I could go traditional publishing, but you've got to write all these letters to all these publishers. And he said once they take on the book, it could be 3 years before it gets to see the light of day. And I thought, gosh, I could be dead by then. Anything could happen. And I thought, if I'm going to go for it, I want to go for it. And so I did. And the one thing I like about self-publishing, Rich, is you do have total control of everything. I own the rights. My dream is that one of the days some TV channel like Hallmark or Disney or somebody like that will pick any one of my full books up and turn it into a TV movie or a TV miniseries, and that's my dream. But if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world. But at least I own all the rights to the books, and so I can control the situation. And I just didn't know what would happen if it landed up in a publisher's hands, and then it was turned into a movie. Then there's the issue with the rights and who owns what, and so on and so forth. So I like self-publishing. I can market it how I want, and I can design my own cover. I have the final say on the content. So. But there's pluses and minuses. I'm sure people who've gone traditional publishers say it's much easier and much better to go traditional. It's personal preference, I suppose.
Exactly, and it depends on your comfort level too. You were handed the issue of the 3-year wait. You said, "Nah, this isn't what I'm going to do. I'm going to go. I want this done so I'm alive when it happens." And
Yes.
you got the book out, and you've seen the success of getting that #1 out, and you start moving. There's some people that aren't comfortable with taking over that ownership and having to print it and or digitally manufacture it, and then actually store it if you do have the printing and all that stuff. And they're more than happy to let someone else do it and to take that very big cut from everything. They wind up with maybe 1% of all sales overall, or 1% of the rights to it. Like you said, if it goes to a movie set or a TV series, Netflix, Amazon, you lose a lot if you go through someone else.
Yes, and of course, in my case, it was a question of fools rush in where wise men fear to tread, I suppose, because the tough part was, once I got the book published and edited, and I had the cover design, and it was all printed, and I got all these books, it was like, well, now what do I do? And marketing is a whole other ball game, especially for a self-published author. You're the one that's got to go out and arrange all the book signings and find the speaking engagements. And it was really tough at first. I had no idea what to do or where to go. But it's like anything else in life, Rich. It's got to be a challenge for it to be interesting. It has to be, because if anything that comes easy to you is, in my view, it's just not fun. It's got to be some challenge to make it happen. And it's taken me down a path I never expected. And I've met a lot of wonderful people, a lot of other authors locally, and book signings. I've met a lot of tremendous people, and being on podcasts like yours, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy them. There's a lot of wonderful podcast hosts out there too, doing a wonderful job of helping us all spread the word about what we're doing. It's amazing.
That's one of the reasons why I started this, was to get people's stories out there. And of course, advice from people like you. Have now 4 books out there, self-published. There's someone out there right now thinking, I can't do this. And they're listening to you say what you went through, and maybe the tips at the end of the show, what you'll say, this is what advice I give you as a young author or up and coming author. This is what you need to do it. And this helps people more than I thought it would. And it's amazing.
I think the points you're raising and making, which are very, very true. As I said, I was totally green and I just jumped in. But I think there are a lot of people that are intimidated. It is a daunting task, and I thought long and hard about it. The one of the drawbacks of self-publishing is, obviously you've got to pay for the editing, you've got to pay for the typesetting, you've got to pay for the cover design, you've then got to pay for the website. There's a huge chunk of change out your pocket before you've even sold one book, which can be daunting. But the company that helped me publish the first book, the gentleman, he was quite right. He said, you know what, Stephen? He said, you could go on a cruise to Alaska and it'll cost you like $3,000 or $4,000. And you'll come back with some wonderful memories. But he said, you spend $3,000 or $4,000 on your website and getting this book out there. He said, I'll take you on a journey you would never imagine. And he's absolutely right. It's all where we choose to spend our disposable income, isn't it? And I decided to spend it there, and it has. It's just taken me on this wild ride. It's like going down the rabbit hole. You just don't know what's around the corner. But it's all good. It's been fun, and yes, I'm now on the verge of getting my 5th book published. Well, edited. I've just finished writing it, so it's all good. It's good fun. It's a nice, relaxing hobby and escapism. And to any of your listeners out there who are thinking of self-publishing and wondering whether their book's worth it or whether it's worth the investment, I just say, if it's your dream, pursue your dream, make it happen. Just follow your gut and find your audience. Just make the dream come true. Nobody else is going to do it for you, so
exactly.
Make it happen.
You can't have a dream and hope that your favorite author writes it for you. You should write your own dream. Right.
For sure. Yes, for sure.
So speaking of that, who was your favorite author before you became an author?
Believe it or not, Charles Dickens.
Okay.
The classical author.
Yes.
It could be that he comes from my hometown of Portsmouth in England. I don't know. But I've just always thought his characters, his books and his characters and his stories, the characters are so well defined, and they've all got amazing names like Ebenezer Scrooge. I mean, just the name Scrooge conjures up this picture of this mean-spirited character, doesn't it?
Yes.
And you look at Fagin and from Oliver Twist and the Artful Dodger and places, characters like that. I just find him a very fascinating author. His books are a little bit down, of course, they're a little bit heavy. And occasionally they get, like Oliver, they get turned into a musical and they become sort of happy stories.
Yeah, somehow, yeah.
but I like him, and I like a lot of John Grisham's books. I think he's very, very talented and gifted.
Yeah, I think he was one of the first authors that I got hooked on his series, John Grisham, and I'd sit and read the whole book like in 2 or 3 days, even though they're like thick like this,
Yeah,
and dive through them because I was so into it because his character development was great, his
yeah,
storylines were awesome, and just keep you in there. And then Tom Clancy was my other one.
yeah. Well, they're authors whose books are very hard to put down. You almost pick them up with trepidation because the next few days are just going to be shot. Reading the books because you can't just put it down easily.
You want to know what's happening.
Yes. It's something that you've got to start like on a Friday night and knowing full well that you've got nothing on the calendar for the Saturday or the Sunday.
You're not going to miss any appointments. It's good.
No.
Awesome. Who was your target audience when you first started writing? I know you have different genres that they're murder and stuff. So who was your target audience?
Well, when I was told to do the women's fiction and I wrote the book, The Chapel of Eternal Love, the target audience I thought was going to be like the bored suburban housewife in middle America. That's who I kind of aimed it at. Not that I know much about the boredom middle America suburban housewife living in Las Vegas. But that was who I was thinking of. But they tell me that it's more suitable towards mature women. Yes, women in their 30s, 40s, and 50s read it and enjoy it. But surprisingly enough, all of the books, even my last one, Discreetly Yours, about the three ladies of the night, if you will, who plot to kill the guy that runs the escort agency, very popular at senior centers. I go and talk at a lot of senior centers here in Las Vegas, and I give them a little chat on all four of my books. And certainly since I've published the fourth one, Discreetly Yours, about the three ladies that the night that murder the pimp, if you will, that seems to be by far and away the most popular book in senior centers. And again, I never ever dreamed it. At first, I never even thought of promoting it there because I just thought it wasn't really appropriate reading. I didn't think there'd be any interest in it. But one of the activities directors said, "Oh no, you need to come to when talk about your other books, talk about that one as well." And that night, by far and away, that was the one that sold the most. So who knows? Who knew?
Right. And you might start off writing thinking you're aiming at some distinct group, and then you wind up with a whole different group.
Yes.
It's still
one thing I was very fortunate, Rich, and I would certainly, for any of your authors who are thinking of self-publishing, I would certainly encourage them to get into a writer's critique group if they can. And I've been in one since virtually day one. And it started out with two gentlemen and a lady, and then it turned into just myself and four women. And certainly, if you're a male writing for women, you definitely need to get into a critique group because these four ladies, they were just a boom. And men do think differently from women. There's no question about it. We're wired differently. That's one thing I really, really learned. We're wired differently. Women see things in a different light, different perspective. When they're reading, different things are important to them. And they've got to be in the books. And I would have been sunk without these four ladies. I had to go back to the drawing board so many times, It's just how it is.
Well, it's good you were able to get into that group and find, I guess, expertise to help you get along your way. Because, like you said, there's no way me or you can write in that light without either interpreting something wrong or writing it totally wrong because we're not that person. It's hard to do that.
Well, it is. And the last one in particular, as I said, it's about three ladies of the night. I didn't do any research. In fact, there's no research on any of my books. They're all 100% imagination, 100%. But even trying to get into the minds to write the dialogue between these three ladies, it's tough. it's, but there again, it's the challenge. And I tried to write as best I could, and that my four ladies came in and helped and said, well, I'm not too sure they would say that. You might want to say, put it like this, and I go back and rephrase it.
Right.
But it's tough. I think it's tough for a man to write for a woman. I'm not too sure what it's like for a woman to write for a male reading audience. That I don't know, but I know it's tougher on the other side of the fence.
I can imagine. And I know we talked about you marketing and going on your book tours. I learned a lot of that on the fly. My daughter got published right out of high school in 2015. So her book came out Christmas Eve of 2015.
Good for her.
I learned on the fly how to get her out there to tours, and a lot of it was a help from my sister-in-law who is the manager for Barnes and Noble. So that got her into a lot of book tours, book signings along the East Coast for Barnes and Noble. So that helped a lot to get the publicity out. But I'm sure marketing a larger audience is much harder than that.
It is. Barnes and Noble over here, they've been great. It's different times, of course, because bookshops seem to be going by the wayside. It's really Barnes and Noble, and there's no Borders anymore. There used to be a lot of those Borders bookshops around, and a lot of the independent bookstores seem to be going by the wayside. Of course, so much business now goes through Amazon.
I mean, you
kind
find
of the same in a way.
You might find some what they call now antique bookstores or antique shops that have books in them now with dust all over it, and they call that bookstore old. But usually we don't find a classic bookstore with shelves and shelves of books and ladders up the shelves, which were what drew a lot of people into wanting to write, because they wanted their book to be on that shelf. Now your shelf is what me and you are looking at right now, the computer.
Yes, for
it's
sure.
A lot different now.
That's absolutely true. Well, I hope your daughter continues to write and get more books out there.
She's a lot more. After that book came out, she went to college to become a writer, and now she is a lot more critical on herself. So it's taken a little while to get this next book out.
Well, but is that what she wants to do as a career, be an author?
A creative writer, yes.
Good for her. Good for her. Well, if she's got that passion, that's what matters. If she went to school to become a creative writer, she's got the drive and the passion in it. So I'm sure she'll do well. Ultimately, that's what it takes, isn't it? It's the passion and the devotion and dedication.
Right. If you don't have that passion, it's just like waking up and dredging through life. You have to have that passion to get up every morning and say, I'm going to get to this next chapter as far as I can get into it, and then do the rest of my housework.
Yes. It's slightly different because I'm doing it like as a hobby.
Right.
So for me, it's fun. But if she's looking at it for a livelihood, so she's viewing it from a totally different perspective. Yeah. But it's nice to know that there are people out there that still want to write and have got that creative mind.
I've had a few other authors on here, a couple from New Zealand that were very, very well versed in how they got out there, and they were very good people. And I learned a lot just from them too, because they both had different paths to get into writing, and the reasons why. Just like you waited later to start writing, they did too, and now they're just happy doing that as their main focus, and then doing side things just to have fun.
Yeah, as I said, I never really planned on writing it. It was just one day I just suddenly thought, having traveled to all these countries, I just would really like to jot all the experiences down, the different cultures, the different people, the different customs and things like that. I thought it would be very interesting, and I spent 2 years painstakingly writing this tome, only to find out, that nobody would read it, and I was kind of crushed. But it was through that I discovered this joy of writing. It wasn't like I ever had a passion for it before. I enjoy writing letters and things like that, but I'd never thought about publishing a book. And so it's been kind of a fun journey. It just has.
I'm glad you enjoyed, and I hope you have your next book is in editing now. Is that along the same genres of the other ones, or is it totally different?
No, it's totally different. I like the challenge of writing in different genres. You know, the first two about the wedding chapels, that's kind of mainstream fiction. Then Murder Aboard the Queen Elizabeth II, that's a cozy murder mystery. And then, of course, Discreetly Yours, it's crime fiction because it's murder. They're actually committing a crime. So, and I thought for something totally different. My next book it's a very warm and fuzzy Christmas novel. It's the kind of thing you would actually see on a Hallmark, one of those warm, fuzzy, mushy things that you would see. And I just thought that would be something totally different, having been buried for a couple of years writing about murder and escort agencies and, drug addicts and things like that. It would be nice to just write something that was just fun and
joyful,
uplifting and frothy. But all of the books, even despite the subject matter, they're all kind of clean and pure. There's no expletives or there's no graphic sex in any of them. They're just pure, fun, uplifting, easy reads. Even in Discreetly Yours about the hookers, there's implied sex, but there's no graphic details. So, I mean, you could give it to your grandmother to read, and some people I know have, and grandmothers have enjoyed it just as much as they have. So.
That's all that matters. Someone's enjoying it. That's good.
Yes, absolutely. I try and keep it clean so that anybody can read them.
Definitely. That's I try to keep the show clean too, so anyone can listen to it. I don't have to get any complaints.
There you go. Yes, got to be careful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And having a Christmas one, you may get picked up by Hallmark. They have I think 1 million Christmas movies now, so you may get in there.
Well, I've watched them, and mine's different. They seem to follow a tried and true pattern, and I guess it works for them. They always end with that kiss, every single one of them.
Every one of them.
Yes, and it's normally somebody who's leaving some big city to go and spend Christmas in a rural little town somewhere and go back to their roots, and then find they don't miss the big city after all, and these promising careers, and they fall in love with some childhood sweetheart. Mine isn't quite like that, but it's a similar thing. It's 5 people. They're on the way to spend Christmas with friends and family, and they're on a helicopter, and the plane crashes, and they land up in this tiny little Christmas village that seems to live Christmas all year round. And the 5 people, they've all got personal issues to deal with, and how these few days in this little Christmas village where they're stranded totally changed their lives, their perspectives, and their outlook on life. So as I said, it's a fun, warm, fuzzy read.
That's good.
Just to come up with a title and away we go.
That would help, the title. Yeah.
That's another issue, finding a title. There's so many Christmas books out there, and if you want the word Christmas in it, trying to kind of come up with something that hasn't already been chosen, that's another story in and of itself.
Yeah, that'll probably be the hardest part right there, since there are so many out there now. Yeah.
It has been, and normally the title for a book comes as I'm writing the book, and this one it just didn't. So I'll come up with something. The Chapel of Eternal Love, that didn't have a title because I never intended to publish it. I just wrote chapters and filed it in the computer for a couple of years, and so then when this company that helped me edit it, they said, you've got to go with that. I said, I don't even have a title for it. So we sat down together and dreamed up and brainstormed and came up with a title for that. It's amazing how sometimes things turn up.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So you said you don't do research to put into your books. It's 100% off your top of your head. So there's no characters that are based on real people?
No. No, I wish some of the people that I knew were as exciting as some of these characters, or lived lives exciting. But no, they're all the only book that does have an element of truth, if you will, is The Murder Aboard the Queen Elizabeth II, and that's only because I'd actually been on the Queen Elizabeth II, and originally it was going to be about a couple celebrating their silver wedding anniversary, and they're very wealthy and they live in Beverly Hills. And I wrote it really as a murder mystery for a dinner party. And then I thought, you know what? I want to take the story and develop it further. But I don't really know anything about the Beverly Hills lifestyle. I don't move in those circles. But I had been on the QE2, so I thought, well, you know what? I can just say this very wealthy Beverly Hills couple, they're celebrating their silver wedding anniversary, and we can put it on the QE2, and they take their friends and their dysfunctional family, and as they come back from England to New York, one of the party gets murdered, and of course the mystery's got to be solved before the ship docks in New York, otherwise everybody scatters.
Right.
But that's where I was able to use some of my own personal experience, because I remember the names of the restaurants and the names of the suites and the stores on board ship and things like that. So I was able to make it sort of authentic and realistic.
Nice.
But I certainly didn't interview any ladies of the night for Discreetly Yours, and I didn't interview any wedding couples in a wedding chapel or even wedding chapel organizers when I wrote those books. They're just all imagination, all fun. Keep those brain cells active and going.
You should bring a copy to the chapels and say, "Hey, have people read this."
Well, actually, one thing that I was kind of surprised about, I thought that for the number of wedding chapels we have, we've got like 50 here in Las Vegas. I thought that would be a natural sell for them, but only a couple of them have actually sort of taken it as a item to sell. I was kind of disappointed in that, but
wow, it is strange.
Maybe it's because maybe if I had called it the Chapel of and their wedding chapel title, maybe they would have taken it differently then. But
take stacks of them, yeah.
Yes.
That would have been totally different. You're right.
Yes.
All right. So, Stephen, thank you for coming on. If someone wants to get in contact with you, how would they do that? And do you have any words of wisdom to pass on to aspiring authors before we take off here?
Well, I think just as I said earlier, I would certainly say follow your dreams for any aspiring author. And I would say that just as a matter of general course in life, just pursue your dream, but be sure that you give back along the way as well. We've all been blessed in so many ways. I think here in America, I think sometimes we take a lot of it for granted, and we need to give something back because we've been given so much ourselves. So I try to do that. But to aspiring authors, whether you go traditional, don't give up. If you get a rejection letter from traditional publisher, don't give up. Just keep on plugging and plugging and plugging, and somebody will ultimately pick it up. And if you choose to go self-publishing, brace yourself for a tough journey, but make it fun. It's like everything else. If you're given lemons, make sure you turn it into lemonade. And if you're given grapes, turn it into champagne. Do the best. But I thank you, Rich, again for your service to our country. And I thank you for inviting me to be a guest on your show. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I do hope your listeners enjoy listening to it as much as I've enjoyed being on it. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
I'm sure they'll enjoy listening to you and learning about your journey and some of the tips you just gave. And thank you for taking your time and again for linking me up with Homes for Our Veterans. And you have a good day.
You do the same and stay safe.
That was an interesting chat with Stephen. Be sure to check out his body of work and, of course, his books on his website and get him to come on your show. So you know how we do this. Thanks for taking some of your time to spend with us on the Misfit Nation. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and share the link as much as possible. If you want to, please become a supporter to help us carry this thing on. We appreciate you. If you know anyone that would bring energy and has a great story for the show, have them visit our website at themisfitnation.com and just reach out to us. So as always, till next time, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are the Misfit Nation.